Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Two Vintage Sports Guys. This is your host, Joe Rendacci. Paul is still traveling and about. I brought in a return as a guest host, Mr. Chris Gilbert. Chris, give us your little introduction.
Hey, Joe. Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's good to be back. It's interesting. I think it's been maybe a month, a little over a month since I did the last one, and some things have definitely changed.
Oh, okay. Well, do tell. What's changed? What do
Well,
you want to
I
talk
think,
about?
you and I were talking a little bit offline about some of the win percentages, and I think you made the point, which is a good point, that it's May, right? And
Okay. All right. So let's jump in. Let's let the audience know we're talking about baseball. We're going to lead with baseball, and it's been a bit of a constant theme. We've been talking about this lately, where 40-ish games in, and we're starting to see some teams separate themselves. As of a few days ago, there were only 4 teams out of 15 in the American League that had an above 500 record. The rest were all toiling under 500. So
yeah,
then you could say, well, with all the parity, what's going on? Are teams getting more parity like in baseball, like football, or are they just finding their footing in bad weather in some of these cities, or are they a rash of injuries in others? So let's take it from that approach. What's your thoughts on that?
well, I mean, all good points, right? And again, it is early in the season, but I think you are starting to see, like you said, some of the teams separate themselves from others. The Braves, of course, and I'll go ahead and say right from the open, I'm a Braves fan. I grew up in Atlanta, so I do gravitate towards the Braves. But I was very optimistic about them, 2 months ago, and they're starting to have some people come off the injured list. To your earlier point, so they're 40 games in, and I think some of their better players are, getting back in the rotation. They already have a great record, and we talked a little bit about the win percentage record. Um, there's some teams that are really standing out, and the Braves being, from an East Coast standpoint, certainly one of those with I think a .684 as of the 12th. So
Yeah,
their win
and
percentage is
and
pretty
they're
good.
playing. What are they going to be playing now? The Cubs, right? So Braves are 20
You got
13, Cubs are 27 and 14. So we're going to have a good 3-game series there. And they're where? They're in Chicago.
Yeah, and I think yes, and I think you pointed out too that the Cubs came off of two 10 game win streaks. They
Two
just lost
ten
one.
game win streaks out of your
Yeah,
first 40 games.
right.
Now, I don't know if that says something about the Cubs or the quality of competition they're playing, that people can't just like there are sweeps going on left and right
Right.
in
Agreed.
the first third of the season so far. So what is that? Is it again? Is it bad weather? Is it bad pitching? Is it bad hitting? What is it? Is it a combination of all of it?
Well, I think to your earlier point, we'll know by midsummer. We'll know by July 4th or a little later. But it's interesting to note that the Cubs in 1906 held the win percentage record that year with something .75 or .76. Um, there's a lot of teams that have great percentage win records, but don't necessarily win the World Series. So,
Well, and right, and that goes back to what we were talking about. And to your point, the Cubs finished 116 and 36 with a 7.763 percentage
there you go.
in 1906. Well, obviously, that was a dead ball era, right? Up
Yeah,
until Babe Ruth started hitting more home runs than most teams. But you and I remember really the last team was the 2001 Seattle Mariners, who finished with 116 and 46 for 7.716. And what happened? They still got knocked out by that Yankee dynasty.
yep,
Because, as I said, when you play a long season and you're good at beating bad teams, you could look like a juggernaut. But now the
right,
playoffs start and you're playing another good team
right.
head to head, right? Who makes the adjustments? Who's healthy? And all the other factors. And I remember them, hating the Yankees. Mariners could not get past uh, those Yankees, and that was the Mariner team that had Ken Griffey
I was going to
in
say
his
that was the
prime,
Griffey. Yes, that's right.
Edgar Martinez,
Yeah,
Tino Martinez. No, not no, no. I'm sorry. Tino was on the Yankees at that point. Edgar Martinez, Ichiro was on that
yep,
team.
right. That's right.
Uh, that was a killer Mariners team, and they still couldn't get past the Yankees. So,
Very true.
uh, you know, a, and then turn around and look at the Dodgers, who I think they're going to three-peat this year because they're a traveling band of all-stars. They're playing okay right now, but they're not killing it because they'll have some injuries. They'll run into some buzzsaws, and then by the end of the season, they'll pull it all together, and we'll see what they do.
No, agreed. But I think to your point, it's going to be later in the summer till we really get a better feeling, maybe the halfway mark, on who the leaders are really going to be. And then, it's always a question of when the teams peak. But I think back to the Braves, new leadership with Walt Weiss, little change. It just seems like there's more zip in their step this year. They want it again. So we'll see. You mentioned the injury list, and I know I briefly mentioned it, but I think that's a good point too. I mean, there's a lot of folks coming off injury, and it'll be interesting to see how the summer rolls out.
Yeah, if you look at the standings right now, you have Tampa at 27-13, which is kind of a shock because they were bad last year. The whole thing with the stadium, they're playing well, but the rest of the American League East, Baltimore 19-23, Toronto 18-23,
Right.
Red Sox after firing Alex Cora 17-23. Cleveland is leading the Central, but a 22-21 record, and they're the only team above 500 in that Central. And the Athletics, the A's are just 21-19, the only team in the West above 500. So a lot of parity, and within these divisions, if it somehow stayed like this, you could see some team making the playoffs and winning their division with maybe 87 wins, right? Within their division. They're not going to be any 90-win teams as far as that.
Agreed.
And then the Braves, Phillies, you fire your manager, you go on a little win streak, right? 19-22. I mean, it's a long season. Can they catch the Braves? Sure. But I don't even think they worry about that with 3 playoff wild cards.
I agree.
I agree. You just try to get in, right? Yeah. And as the Braves have showed us over some years, when they've run away with the division and they stopped playing by early September, they got knocked out in the first round because they weren't hot and on a roll anymore.
Yeah, I think to your point, it was the Phillies that knocked them out in the first round that year, and
2 years in a row.
Yeah, 2 in a row.
And then the Phillies won, and the Mets knocked them out the next year.
Yeah, that's right.
It was the Mets team, right? But I think you always have to watch the Marlins, right? They are Met killers forever and a day. Doesn't matter the record. If it comes down to the last 3 games in the season versus the Marlins, the Mets will blow that and lose 2 or 3. And they did it last year. They didn't make the playoffs on the last game of the year against the Marlins, and they didn't deserve to make the playoffs. So I was fine with that. But they are actually still sitting, the Mets, as the worst record in baseball, 15-25. And
I knew it was up there. I didn't realize it was the last.
I mean, you know how long it takes to recover, to win 10, you're 10 games under 500.
Right.
Right. They're not going on a 10-game winning streak.
Right.
So even if you won every series, like you won 2 out of 3 games, that's 1 game.
1 extra game. That's right. You need 10 of those series.
You have to win.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
10 series just to get back to 500. And it would take you 2 months, 3 months to win that, just to get back to 500.
If you do everything right. I mean, to your point, if you do everything right, it would be 2 months. So
yeah, that's not going to happen. But all right, so with the Cubs and your Braves, which they actually are playing in Atlanta, tell me about some cards that you've had your eye on with that.
Well, I think the last time we might have talked about some rookie cards and some prospect stuff, but I've kind of settled back into, and I guess I'll go here first, but I really like what people like Juan Rosales have done, the artist sketch cards. They've been really interesting to me this past year. I know I sent you a couple of those that I have personally. I don't think any of them were Braves, but really like.
Tell the audience who Juan Rosales is.
Yeah, so Juan is a sketch artist and a professional artist, and he's one of, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 artists that Topps has under contract maybe a few more, to do one-of-one cards. They're sketch cards, and some of them are pretty elaborate and amazing. They're all individual. They're artist proofs, and they come with a couple different series. I know the museum series has a few. I think I have one from that series or two. But they're really, I mean, to support independent artists, I think is a pretty great thing. And I think it's
Tell me
cool the
about
way they do it.
you sent me Skeens and you sent me a Shohei. So tell the audience about them as I'm showing
Yeah,
it on
so
the
yeah,
screen.
the Shohei is I think it's more the Angels helmet than it is the Dodgers helmet, but they do the samurai helmet. And that was just a really cool card. The likes of which you really just don't see, right? It's very extravagant. But it's all done by hand. It's done by in that case Juan Rosales, and his stuff, if you've not looked at it, is pretty amazing. You can do a Google search on it, and he does basketball, racing. I mean, pretty much all the sports. But the quality of his work is just phenomenal, and I think it shows up really well in the Shohei card. Um, and it's something that's in my private collection, and I'd say the same thing about Skeens. It's a museum collection card. But the artist work is just phenomenal. The coloring's phenomenal, and it just stands apart from some of the other things that you find in a box of cards these days.
So you're telling me these are one of ones. This is it. This is the one card.
Right. Yeah, and they're done by hand. So again, it's good for Topps for reaching out and helping the artist community to profit from the growth.
So how do you value this if it's one card? What's your comps on this?
Well, I mean, as most collectors will tell you, there's so many one of ones of so many different series that it's almost lost its appeal. But again, to have something that was hand drawn that is a one off, to me, that's what collecting's all about. Certainly, a player that you like or a series that you like. It's really cool that they've reached out and supported individual artists.
So you could put this card up right now on eBay for pick a number, $5,000, and see if anybody bites. See if that's what the market bears.
And it's the market bears. I mean, that's it. And because they're unique, you just don't know. At a show, I think it might do better if it was sitting out at a collector show rather than doing it online because of the uniqueness of it. But 2,500, range would be my guess. Maybe a little more.
Let me ask you this. With the Skeens one, right, that I have up on the screen, you put it up there for 5,000. If somebody wants it, they buy it. If not, you lower it. I mean, is it literally? Where did you get it? Did you pull it out of? Did you break it open in a pack, or where did you?
So that's a great question, and one of the maybe called an industry secret. Great question, Joe. You can actually commission the artists to do certain works. So that museum piece is one. Now you can pull them from decks, and I pulled 2 of the 4 that I own. I think I have 4 or 5. So I pulled 2 of them. But then I found out that you can commission the artist, and the artist will only have a certain number of blanks. But for, $300, $400, $500, it really depends on the artist and maybe who you're having them, what you're commissioning. But you can commission them to do the work.
Okay. Well, as far as the 2 we're showing with the Shohei and the Skeens, did you commission? Did you pull it, or did you buy it?
It's funny, and that's a great ask, because the ones I pulled, I did not send to you. I pulled the ones I commissioned. Because
so you actually commissioned this Skeens and this Shohei.
I did. I'd seen the Shohei once before with the helmet, right. And I'm pretty sure. Don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure that for the artists, they have to take an existing image. They're creating an existing image. They're not creating a brand new image. So that would have been in another one of either a museum series or another series. But yeah, I commissioned Juan to do those. It took probably a couple months, 3 or 4 months. And I think they were in the $300 to $400 range, maybe a little more. I think value-wise, they would be, certainly north of that now. They're a couple years old. But, again, like you said, it's what the market bears.
Interesting. So I'm looking on it. I guess Juan doesn't sign these himself?
He does, and I should have sent you the backs. Yeah, I should have sent you the backs, and I'll send you the backs of these so you can show the backs, because it does say one of one, and you'll see the artist's signature there. And
okay, yeah, I'll put that up. So send that too. Okay, very cool. And looking at you sent me an Acuna card. Why don't you give me a little backstory on what's special about this?
Yeah, so and I'm not sure exactly which year they started doing this, but This was from a series called the UK edition, and you'll see the British flag on it. And I believe this one is a maybe 31 of 125, but just a classic Kuna image variation. That's a pretty popular variation, but specific to a UK edition card. This is the black version of that card, and it's one that I ended up sending to PSA and have them go ahead and grade. I wasn't necessarily thrilled with an 8.5, but I understand these cards don't particularly grade well, and it's always nice to have one that's got a 0.5 in it. From a collector standpoint, it's a little different.
So yeah, I mean, if you take a look and people will go, well, why is the UK selling US baseball cards when they don't have, our teams or
Right.
anything over there? And it's like anything else. There's a growing international market, and Fanatics, slash Tops, have been expanding in Europe since the pandemic. And with the influence of the MLB London games, right? Some teams go over to play in London for a series to show them what they're missing per se, and that is growing. So it is interesting to see the cards. I'll have to look into the numbers to see how the card collection is going over there. But these specialized UK edition sets with Union Jack logos,
Right.
uh,
It's just a
it's pretty
different
cool.
look, and for those who really love the card images, and I'm one of those. I've seen that image before, but to have it on a UK based card is just a little different. And I think, like you said, it probably started around the pandemic, but the Braves were on TBS for 30 years, and I think that's part of the the fandom that they have in Europe and certainly in Asia. That they were an international team. My family lived in Singapore in the 90s, and I would watch Braves games from Singapore because it was on TBS. So baseball became somewhat international, I think because of TBS. But now, since 2020, I think that's kind of perked back up again. And to see these variations, it's kind of cool. It's something different.
Yeah, and they did try in 1988 and 89 to make baseball and football products for the UK market, but it didn't sell well at that point.
Yeah, that
But
makes sense.
it's before the superphone computers everybody's carrying, all the global satellites, all the streaming. To your point, in 1988, TBS, heck, I don't even think I had cable
Yeah,
until 1990, right? So in New York, for me, it's ABC, NBC, CBS, the three big networks,
right.
and then the local channels, 5, 9, and 11. Mets were on 9, Yankees were on 11, and PBS was 13, I think, back then. But
Yeah,
what
and a lot
did
of the
you have
listeners
in
may not
Atlanta?
remember when we had those few channels, but in 1990 and 1991, to be able to sit around and watch a full Braves game in Singapore was, it was kind of cool. And those players had international recognition. To this day, there's a lot of players that came out of that. Deion Sanders and I'm an Otis Nixon fan, and there's a lot of great players that got international recognition because of TBS. So
and,
I think
and,
that's
and WGN with the Cubs, right?
yeah,
Those were the two
WGN's.
super. Those were the two super
That's right.
stations. I remember, again, prior to cable. Well, I had to
Well,
know
Harry
when I
Carey became
first,
a household name, right?
yeah,
Because of
when I first got
WGN.
cable. Uh, if the game was on, if I was trying to follow the Mets, and I could watch it on WGN if they were playing
That's
the
right.
Cubs, or TBS if they were playing the Braves. And yeah, and maybe that's what led to them trying it in 88 and 89, because that's probably when cable, at least in the US, was just starting to come around into all the houses, right?
Yes.
So they
Agreed.
they probably tried a UK market. You should probably look for some of those cards to see if you could find the 88, 89 Tops
Well,
UK cards.
yeah, and of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't point out the death of Ted Turner this past week, right? And Bobby Cox. Bobby Cox, being one of the best managers in baseball history. And of course, Ted Turner, who was a pioneer in getting games broadcast internationally, right? He really led the charge on that. So two big losses
Yeah,
for
I
the
mean,
game.
say what you want. I mean, Ted Turner did a lot. I mean, between
Yeah.
creating CNN and the Turner movie, the Turner Classics,
Absolutely.
AMC, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he put
Read
a
a
lot
great
out
story
there.
about Turner Classic Movies this past week. If you get a minute, look that up. It's very interesting how he ended up starting that channel. They basically, it was like he got all the rejected movies that weren't going to be in the contract, and he made a channel out of it. So, to that point, ingrained in the Atlanta Braves culture is Ted Turner and Bobby Cox, of course. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And I forget what was the first movie he colorized that caused like fits.
I want to say it was either Gone with the Wind or Wizard of Oz. I can't remember which. Uh,
Was it? Well, yeah, I forget what was the first movie that he did.
Yeah, you might want to look that one up, but I think it was Gone with the Wind. It could have been Wizard of
He
Oz.
definitely did Casablanca, It's a Wonderful Life,
Okay.
Maltese Falcon, Miracle on 34th, but I'd have to find was it? Yeah.
But it's end
No,
of an era. And again, I give him a lot of credit for making um, baseball more of an international loved pastime because of what he did in the 80s and 90s. And anyone who lived through that time, to your point about CNN, it changed everything, right? I'm an
well,
Iraq veteran.
when you were in the Iraq War, right? Thank you
Yeah,
for your service. Was
yeah,
when CNN went in. It was like the first thing they broadcasted that made their name
you got
being
it.
on scene, with
And I was
with you
interviewed
guys out
once
there.
over there, and I'll tell you, it was unique to have news people embedded in those times. It was very different, and again, it's the end of an era for some of the folks in Atlanta.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Braves have continued to thrive. They've moved into the Battery, right? They have the whole entertainment dollar at play for them now.
Yeah,
And I obviously as a Met fan, I have and always will hate them, but I give them credit for their organizational front office. I
fair
give
enough.
them credit for, like you said, Turner put them on. And if you didn't live in Atlanta, but you lived in Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee, Carolinas, you have no Major League Baseball team,
That's right.
and
That's right.
you pretty much adopt them, right?
I would say the Braves are as big in Chattanooga as they are in Atlanta, for example.
Yeah.
Chattanooga, Eastern Tennessee loves the Braves. So, and again, back to Bobby Cox and Ted Turner, they were, in the South here, they were part of the establishment. And um, I remember reading recently that Bobby Cox had one of the better records in baseball history. Maybe he's fourth or fifth. Um, you know,
Well, he obviously killed it with the Braves from 91 on, right?
yeah,
But he was already a manager prior,
right.
and trying to remember where he was, but he started his managing career in, hang on, let me just try to remember. Well, okay, so he actually started with the Braves in 78.
That's
But
right. And then,
he went
yeah,
69 and 93. Next
yeah,
year
there
in
you go.
79, he went 66 and 94. He got as high as 1980, 81 and 80, right? And then it was pretty much downhill. And he went to coach the Blue Jays for 4 years. And he actually 89 and 73 in both 83 and 84 for the Blue Jays, and he won 99 games in 85. So he did a good job. And without looking into it, I don't know why he then didn't
So he
manage
is
for
he
5.
is the fourth overall winningest manager in MLB history with 2,504. So I
Yeah,
said
but I
fourth, and I
can't
was right.
remember. Why did he not, after 1985, after taking the Blue Jays to 99 wins, he didn't coach again for 5 years until he went back to the Braves? So there's some behind the scenes stories
Yeah,
there.
there's
Like,
something there. But overall, again, I'm a little surprised. Connie Mack has the career record at 37-31, but Bobby Cox is fourth with 2,504 wins in the career. So
who's the top three?
Connie Mack is number one with 37-31. Tony La Russa, not a shock, 28-84. John McGraw,
Yeah, I was going to say John McGraw. He coached forever, and that's early
27-63.
1900s.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you got it.
that's
And
like
then
that's a
Bobby
hundred
Cox,
years ago.
then Bobby Cox, and then Joe Torre. So that
Yeah,
sounds
I
about
can see
right.
that. I'm surprised Whitey Herzog wasn't in there. He was a thorn in my side and your side with the Cardinals forever.
Well, you can imagine. So top 10, you got Sparky Anderson, Dusty Baker. That's not a surprise.
Right.
Bruce Bucci. No, I can't tell you. I remember Bruce Bucci, but Houston Astros, Mets, and Padres.
There you go.
So
All right, very cool. I didn't think I'd finish up with Bobby Cox, but he deserves his due. Rest in peace.
he does.
All right, well, we're going to wrap this up. I want to thank Chris Gilbert for joining us and bringing some of his pretty cool cards and some good stories behind it. So you've given us some stuff to look at here. I'll make sure that they're showing when you guys view this. And that's about it. Say goodbye, Chris.
Okay. Appreciate you having me. Thanks, Jeff.
All right, bud. Take care, everybody. Follow us, and we will see you on the next podcast.